The True Child of Chaos, a fan fiction by NutsOfTheChest. Chapter 1, A New Beginning. Disclaimer, I do not own Percy Jackson or any character in this story. Year 1960. Location, Planet Aguilar, currently orbiting the star VY Canis Major. Narrator's POV. On the planet Aguilar, there was a building so tall that it went past the clouds themselves. In fact, it was the tallest building on the massive planet. On the very top floor, there was a simple office. Its walls were all made of glass, giving it the perfect view over the planet, much like an emperor's throne gazing over its subjects. In the office sat a woman staring at a holographic screen with a light smile on her face. One glance of her was enough to make anyone stop in their tracks and gaze in awe. She was so beautiful, even wives about to smack their husbands that were gazing at her and drooling could only do the same. Her appearance and skin were absolutely flawless, not a blemish or wrinkle in sight. Her black hair fell down to the middle of her back and gleamed like an obsidian waterfall of otherworldly beauty. Her long legs were the center of envy of every woman in the universe, though only partially revealed by a slit on the side of her dress. She wore no fancy jewelry as there was no need for any. Only earrings that seemed to be fashioned from darkness itself hung from her ears. Gracing her smile were perfect lips that many would sell their soul just to kiss. Finally, her stunning face was the definition of perfection. Just one glance, and any mortal would be enslaved to her. The thing that caught the most attention were her eyes, though. They were a shimmering black, yet in that void there was a swirling galaxy. They were so mesmerizing that you couldn't possibly look away, spending hours looking over them and never getting tired of them. Only if you weren't driven to complete obedience and insanity from her looks alone. The black dress she wore did very little to hide her perfect proportions either. In truth, her looks worried her quite a bit, although her charm was off the charts, causing very immortals to crumble beneath them. She regularly used spells to diminish them, so she could at least have a conversation with someone. This woman was none other than the creator of the universe in all of its life. This was chaos. Third-person POV. She gazed lovingly at the hologram in front of her that was filled with scenes from Earth. Currently, the screen was focused on some children playing tag and running around a fountain, laughing like they had no care in the world, because they truly didn't. Their parents were chasing them, and the children squealed in delight as they were easily caught by them and tickled. As she looked at this, she couldn't keep her loving smile off her face as she remembered a time she too experienced such a scene, when she had created the primordials. Unfortunately, it only lasted a day, as they grew to be adults in a mere week. As she continued to look into the hologram, she didn't notice a man walk into the room. "Chaos, you there?" he asked, waving his hand in front of her. While she wasn't paying any attention to him, he called her name 3 times. Without a response from her, he resorted to such antics. With a slight jump of fright, she let out a very girlish "eep" and fell onto the floor to his surprise. He couldn't contain his laughter as he burst out laughing as she tried to get black in the chair. Her eyes quickly locked onto him as she could only glare at him with an "I'll get you later" look. "Damn it! Order, don't sneak up on me like that," she yelled as he just shook his head as his laugh turned into a chuckle at her reaction. She quickly brushed herself off and sat back down. "For the creator of the universe, I'd never expect to hear an eep out of you." His tone had a slight mischievousness to it. "Tell me why you are here before I decide to hurt you," she growled, ignoring his last comment, and looked back at the screen. He glanced at the screen only for a second, and he saw her face as she continued to stare. She had a smile, not one of her fake ones she wears everywhere, but a true smile he had not seen for a millennia. "Well, I was here to talk about some matters with the Chaos Corp and a few planets, but I have a feeling that isn't something you want to hear right now." As he looked away from her, he looked out the windows to admire the view. As soon as he said that, he heard her release a deep sigh that seemed to bring down the room's mood. As he looked back, she was staring into space, but her face showed sadness and depression. He was worried for her. It was rare to see her in such a state. "Hey sis, what has gotten into you for the past few weeks? You have been acting differently from normal, to say the least. It started to worry me immensely about your well-being." He spoke with a worried tone. She only just turned her head to him and stared at him for a little, until she hung her head in her hands and just let out a breath she hadn't realized she held in. Emotions washed over her as she bit her lip and decided to talk to him about what was going on. Brother, I feel empty on the inside, like I have nothing to live for anymore, nothing to care for anymore. Nothing seems to hold meaning to me, and I do not know why. As she said this, she let out a whimper of sorrow and her eyes threatened to tear up. He walked over and held her in his arms. She could only sniffle into his white suit. Hey, it's okay, it's okay. You have lots of things to care for. What about the planets with life on them? What about all of your creations? He asked frantically, trying to think of something to help her in any way. Just then a servant walked in the room silently, but as Order saw him, he shot him a glare. It made the servant freeze in fear, as it nearly made him piss himself, but he got the message and left the room instantly. Thankfully, his bladder was safe as well. They are able to take care of themselves. The gods are able to help when needed. They are more or less self-sufficient without me, she said with tears in her eyes as she cried into her brother's shoulder for comfort. He was flustered about how she got to this point of her thoughts. She was the creator of the universe. He kind of understood, though. She had lived for billions of years and watched her creations fade or grow in her presence. Seeing so many lives thrive and then extinguish countless times does something to you. Even though they were gods, creators even, they too had their limits. Some planets had failed while others thrived, flourishing like a well-watered plant. Such as Earth, even if it was currently having a war between two nations, which wasn't really helping much with the situation. He then turned to the screen on her desk and saw the children playing by the fountain and laughing as their parents played with them. Then what she was truly saying finally hit him with the force of a supernova. Chaos! Do you wish to have a child? It was more of a statement than a question. When she slowly nodded in response, he couldn't believe it. She was chaos. She created the primordials and countless other beings and planets. Wasn't that enough? Well, as far as children went. How long have you been like this? What about the primordials that you made? Aren't they your children? He kept shooting off more and more questions for at least 30 minutes, so fast that she couldn't get a response in until she finally decided to say something. Yes, I see them as my children. What I want isn't something I created with my powers, though. It just doesn't feel the same. What I want is a child who I nurture in my womb, one that is birthed like all other beings, one that I would have with a man, she said just above a whisper. At this point, he had no idea what to think. All he knew was that his sister, the creator of the universe, just said she wanted a blood-born child. For a being such as themselves, it was almost barbaric, but in a way it was almost just as magical as them. He just sat there for what seemed like hours not responding, his thoughts going as fast as they ever had for a solid hour. Thinking out all of the possibilities of what would happen. Even primordials had not had any children in such a way unless it was another primordial or immortal. After what seemed like an eternity of thinking, he finally managed to say something. I understand, sis. You want a true blood child. She just nodded as she was still in his brotherly hug. He let out a breath in a manner that suggested he was already thinking of ways to help her and how difficult such a task would be. Sure, she could literally walk outside and all men would come barking like puppies for a chance to have a child with her. But he would not allow such actions to take place. Jolting him from those thoughts, she finally spoke again. I'm not letting you change my mind about this, but if you want to help, you can choose the man that is most suitable for the position. As a blush crossed her cheeks, but he couldn't tell in this light. Order was currently at a loss for words at the time. He just kept opening his mouth like a fish gasping for air. Such a request was indeed awkward for any brother or sister, but they were creators, which made it somehow less worse. He finally got himself together when he heard his sister calling for him. Hey, are you still there, bro? She had a worried look on her face, thinking she had short-circuited his brain. Yeah, just thinking. And when you say man, I hope you mean the sperm of the man himself, because I don't want a filthy mortal or God defiling my sister, he said with a venomous tone. He was hoping she would say the sperm because he did not want to go manhunting for his sister. He would much rather look through files of candidates for the situation. Oh! She frantically came to realize what he just said to her. She panicked for a second about some stray thoughts coming into her mind. To be honest, the thought of her and a man was kind of unnatural in her mind. Mortals already threw themselves at her like moths to a flame. Even if she dumped her charm down to 0, her looks were still way above average. Even if they could talk normally, she could only imagine what the first date would be like. Like if she told them how old she was or what she did for a living. She snickered at the thought as it came to mind, but she was brought back to reality as her brother was waiting for an answer. I want to have in vitro fertilization. I don't even know how to start going on dates, and I can't bear to see someone I have a child with die of old age. I couldn't stand that feeling, she said as Order couldn't help but agree, albeit powerful and all-knowing. Dating was something the brother and sister just didn't do. Okay, so I will check for males in their prime. Other things as well, like skin color, nationality, and what planet they hail from. As he said this, she lit up like a firework on the Independence Day of Aguilar. He could tell by her face that she was already picking out qualities of the male. Seeing her brain work at maximum capacity, he couldn't help but sigh. This was going to be a long day. One day later, Order's POV. After what seemed like forever and countless hours of chaos listing off details of what seemed to be her dream man. Unknown to herself, she could probably produce an image of him. However, such thoughts were not present as she continued to list them. After listing them all, the massive list of potential people dwindled to only a few dozen. So far, her major traits were as listed. Loyal, handsome, black hair, green eyes, came from Earth, about 6 feet tall, built like a warrior, had to be of godly descent, and finally a rebellious attitude. After all the minor details slowly weeded out the other people, it came down to just 3 people. What about the first one? What is wrong with him? I asked, wishing to get this whole ordeal over with. It was taking millions of years off my immortal life, just having chaos explain her ideal man to me. He's too prideful. Just look at his face. I don't want my child to be so prideful that it gets him killed. Plus, I don't want any true son of mine to have any genes that Zeus is a part of. Being his relative is already bad enough, she sighed. Well, I couldn't argue against that. I also didn't want to be related to Zeus as much as I already was. I ran my hand through my hair and sighed in relief. On to the next one. Yay! Well, of the 2, left one is a legacy of Poseidon, and the other is a grandson of a legacy of Hermes. I would go with the legacy of Poseidon, as all of his children have fierce loyalty to who they serve. Plus, Poseidon is one of the more level-headed gods, in my opinion, even though they all have their flaws. I can't help but agree with you on that. I will go with the legacy of Poseidon. Thank you for helping me. Also, thank you for going to get the sample for me, Chaos said with a chuckle. But the look on my face morphed into something humorous to her. She said the last part. Great, I totally forgot about that. Well, this is going to be one hell of an awkward conversation with the guy. Soon after I started to get ready for my trip to Earth, that would be done in a week. Earth, New York. Time, 1 week later. Third-person POV. In a New York alleyway where the only sign of life was a rat picking through a garbage can, a white portal opened up and out stepped out a man wearing an all-white business suit. He appeared to be in his 40s, but he had an outstanding charm to him that would make any woman swoon to him. He had light gray hair, and though he appeared to be in his 40s, he was free of wrinkles. Finally, he emitted an aura that even mortals could sense, but it only felt like a person of great power, such as a government official. He closed the portal and started on the task at hand. After about an hour of searching through the streets of New York, he finally laid eyes on the restaurant that he was looking for. As he walked in the restaurant, he was greeted with a chime of a bell and smiling waitstaff. It was a high-class restaurant with 3 levels and a doorman, where a single meal could run a person well over $300. He admired the style of the restaurant, albeit not as fancy as the ones on Chaos's planet. It was still very nice for earthy standards. It was a classic Greek restaurant with art lining the walls with some Roman hints here and there, but only a little. Though he would make some changes if he could, he was quickly brought out of his thoughts as a waitstaff quickly approached him. Order POV. Hello, do you have a reservation with us tonight, sir? Or are you here to set one up with us later? He asked in an irritated tone, like he has something better to do than this. I only inwardly rolled my eyes, holding back the urge to liquefy this ignorant mortal. No, I will be joining a friend. I already paid for a VIP table in the Overlook. I snapped his finger, and the man's eyes glazed over. I smiled a bit as I took a little amount of joy controlling the ignorant fool. Though I knew the limits placed on my meddlings with the mortals, I still had to have some fun on this planet. Sorry, sir, I just didn't recognize you at the time. Here, let me show you to your table. He had an oh shit look on his face as cold sweat went down his back. I simply smiled and followed the waiter to my destination. As I got to the VIP section, there was only one other man in the room. He was the very man that Chaos had picked out. Her incredibly long list of requirements led to this single man. Though I had to admit he had a remarkable resemblance to his great-grandfather, aka Poseidon. It seems that God's genes were stronger than I first thought. The man was currency, gazing out the window with a look of longing on his face, as if thinking of a loved one. I simply sat down as the waiter had left us two alone. I simply stared at the man, gazing out the window, waiting for a response. I sat there for a while. He simply did not realize I was there at all. It made me lightly chuckle at this. To finally get his attention, I quickly cleared my throat. This seemed to alert him of my presence. Oh, sorry, I didn't see you there. Wait, why are you sitting at my table? He was quite calm as I put on a smile as he looked at me. I don't know you from anywhere. Have we met before, by any chance, that I can't recall? He outwardly remained very calm and extremely polite for his situation. I couldn't help an internal remark from being made, but I could see him physically tense up, as if waiting for me to turn into a monster and try to kill him. So I decided to prod his mind a little to see what he was thinking. This man isn't simple. With the power radiating off of him, he might be a god in disguise. If he was a monster, I would probably be dead by now. Think. Is he here to kill me? After peeking into his mind, I couldn't help but have my opinion of the man grow. He was also smarter than he appeared as well. Haha, trust me, if I wanted to kill you, I would have already done it. I would have been out of New York before your body hit the floor. Legacy of Poseidon. At the mention of the god, the man stood up and drew a dagger from his suit before holding it to my throat. Who are you and why are you here? Answer before I decide to slit your throat. He spat at me. I only glanced at the magical blade as I gave it no thought. Its purity was far too low to injure me, but I still gave the man the information he requested of me. I am not here to hurt you in any way. I'm actually here to strike a deal with you. I will pay you an immense amount of money, and I will be able to hide your scent from all monsters and gods for the rest of your life. Seeing his calm reaction, I continued. Seeing as you are the last mortal descendant of Poseidon, your scent is also as powerful as any normal demigod, even if you are a legacy. I will help you if you accept the deal. As I said this, I saw the expression on his face turn from one of calm to that of curiosity. He slowly withdrew the knife and raised an eyebrow. So you're saying you can hide me from this awful world? His tone grew laced with curiosity. Such a deal was unheard of by demigod standards. I can do more than hide you, boy. I can completely eliminate your scent. Make you like any other normal human. I can also make it so any child you have won't have the genes of Poseidon in them. You can live normally like you have craved for your entire life. You must agree to my offer before I can make it all happen, though. I swear on my name to hold up my end. As I said this, he sat back down with a look of contemplation on his face. Seconds after my sentence ended, a small boom of thunder crossed the sky as his expression turned into a happy one. You have yourself a deal. You have no idea what it has been like for me these last 20 years. All of the killing of monsters and people to survive, the nights worrying if I'm going to see tomorrow or not. That soul-crushing weight will finally be gone. I can even start a family. What can I offer to get this? My soul. If so, please take it. I can't stand this anymore. As he finished his rant, all I could do was chuckle at his response. Was it really that bad? I thought. I decided to not ask him what was on my mind. No, I don't need your soul, or anything as valuable as that for the matter. No, what I want is some of your... God, how am I going to ask this, I thought, while sending curses to chaos. I just said the first thing that came to mind. Man juice. That came out a full 1,000% weirder than it was supposed to. I swore I could hear Chaos losing her shit and laughing as hard as she could. Yeah, that stuff. Baby-making crap. When I finished speaking, my face was red from the sheer embarrassment of that. His face remained stoic until he cracked a smile and just started laughing. So hard, in fact, he fell on the ground and rolled around. Maybe I should vaporize him. After a couple of minutes of that, he finally regained his composure. Haha. So, that's all you want? A little weird of a request, don't you think? I won't question why you need it, though. As long as you hold up your end of the deal, I don't care. Just give me a cup, a couple minutes in that bathroom, and I'll be good. He got up and started walking to the bathroom. Hey, aren't you forgetting something? Oh! He walked back over to me quickly. You wouldn't happen to have a cup or container on, would you? He said with a flushed face. As a matter of fact, I do. I flashed in a cryo chamber and handed him a cup from inside it with a smirk on my face. You might also want this, my friend, I stated as I handed him a Playboy magazine. He blushed fiercely and took both, then hurried off. Line of the break. After about 30 minutes, he came back with a look of satisfaction on his face. I could only grimace out a knowing smile, but threw all the nasty thoughts into the back of my head. He quickly sat back down at the table and put the now-closed container on the counter. Okay, here it is, my friend. It's all yours now. He smirked at me. Oh, how I wish I could vaporize him, but a deal is a deal. Thank you very much. So the deal is completed. I snapped my fingers, not wanting to touch it at all. The cup quickly floated into the cryo chamber and then disappeared. So you want what I previously suggested? Or something else entirely? I asked as I even offered a bit more than I originally suggested. Even though his part was small, it was very important for my sister, even though I wanted him turned into dust. Yes, I want the first offer as soon as you possibly can. He spoke enthusiastically, as if he was a child getting a gift for Christmas. I can do those right now? I snapped my fingers again as he sat there excited, but nothing happened. That's it? He asked as I nodded. Everything is done. I'm not flashy like some of the more simple-minded gods. I said, thinking of a particular Thunder one. Simple-minded gods, he whispered to himself. Then, as if suddenly understanding something, he looked at me with wide eyes, his understanding of me throwing itself out the window. Okay, my friend, it is done. In your bank account, there is over $100 million. Also, I set up some stocks so that you will never have to work again. You'll find yourself never being seen by a monster again, or you seeing them either. Your life on this side of reality is officially over, I said as he slowly nodded. So go out there and live the dream you have always wished for. Have some kids even. You won't have to worry about them getting attacked by monsters either. Not a speck of godly blood will reside in them, I said with a smile as the reality of the situation came to him. He quickly walked over to me and shook my hand frantically, while just saying, thank you, over and over. I just gave a small smile, as the man seemed to almost break down with tears coming from his eyes. I just patted his shoulder lightly, trying to give him some comfort. Don't worry, my friend. You did something for me, so I did something for you. That is what this deal was for. May our paths hopefully never cross again, so that you can live the life you dreamed. I just stood up and started to leave him to his new world. He stopped me just before I left the restaurant. I never got your name. What may I call my savior? He asked as I hummed for a second. You may simply call me Order. As I ended my introduction, he just looked stunned, his understanding of the mythological family tree working itself to the maximum before a light went off in his head. Before he could bow, I disappeared in a pure white portal leading back home. Olympus, same time when Order arrives, third-person POV. Olympus was busy at the moment, if you could call it that. The council was in a meeting that seemingly was going off the rails a bit worse than usual. Zeus was telling tales of his grand achievements and conquests, as if trying to link them to the topic at hand. Though the gods appeared to be listening, nobody was actually listening to him. The twin gods themselves were in an actual argument of their own at the moment. How many times must I tell you that I am older than you? Artemis said in a chilled tone, rubbing her temples as she seemed sick of her young brother's antics. Her winter, like Iris, focused on the beaming, happy-go-lucky sun god, who was currently wearing sunglasses and a purple robe. Whatever you say, little sis, Apollo said with a shit-eating grin as Artemis let out a deep, angry sigh, seemingly giving up this argument. Demeter was telling everyone to eat more cereal. Apparently a good harvest had come, and they should all experience the flavorful brand of unsweetened Cheerios. Aphrodite was doing her makeup and changing her clothes to match, each outfit more stunning than the last. Ares was sharpening a sword while clad in a bloodied red robe. Hera seemed to be just staring into space, her mind filled with mysterious thoughts. Hermes was checking hundreds of messages a second. The infinitely busy god never seemed to catch a break. Hephaestus sat quietly in his chair as he was working on a machine in his hands, the machine itself appearing to be a bouquet of ever-changing flowers. Dionysus was reading a wine magazine with dark circles under his eyes as if experiencing a hangover. Poseidon was like Hera. His mind was thinking of something that took his full attention. As the meeting continued, Apollo seemed to stop teasing his sister, much to her surprise. His expression focused, as his eyes seemed to glow extra bright behind his shades. Suddenly, the whole council room focused on the absent-minded sun god. Even Zeus stayed silent as the god slowly came to. As he did, a serious expression suddenly appeared on his face. A blank prophecy? No. Perhaps a vision from the fates instead? Why do all I see is white? Something has changed, he said as the council listened to him. Suddenly, a tingle was felt in all the gods' spines as a power signature filled the room. Even Hades, who was not present, felt something covering his chamber down in the deep. By the gods, did you all feel that? Apollo whispered. It was nothing like he had ever felt before. Such a powerful force, Zeus said as his face darkened. Even the king of the gods, that was filled with arrogance, couldn't help but feel taken aback by it. We must investigate, Zeus said. Let us go to it and find it. We need to see if it is a threat to Olympus, he said as the rest nodded quickly, equipping battle-ready armor. Even Aphrodite was decked out in armor and a sword. They all proceeded to try and flash out, yet the room seemed to shake. The first one to flash out was Hermes, and the first to discover a problem. With an extra loud smack, a bruised Hermes fell from the ceiling and hit the ground with a thud. Ow! Yelled an overdramatic Hermes who was holding his face. However, the rest of the gods were stunned at the sight as they stopped themselves from flashing. Good Hades, that hurt! Hermes yelled as he stopped golden ichor running from his nose. A barrier? Athena said as Hermes simply nodded. Zeus's face turned even darker as he walked forward to the entrance of the throne room. Putting his hands against the door, his muscles bulged with extreme power. The doors shook a little, but did not budge a single inch as he continued to push. However, the doors remained sealed shut, trapping all the Olympians in the throne room, like caged rats. Hades himself also experienced a similar scene. Zeus sighed in frustration as he eventually gave up. He was tempted to throw his master bolt at the door, yet if such a weapon was unleashed in such confined space, the results would be disastrous. Even he would not be unscathed from the explosion at such close quarters. Looks like we're stuck in here. He, as the other Olympians, seemed to be thinking of ideas. Athena seemed to be muttering to herself as her brain went into overdrive. Ha 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 ha! All of you together couldn't open the doors, even if you all used your maximum power, said the looming voice of order as it filled the room. All of the Olympians showed battle-ready stances, looking around for the cause of the voice. Don't worry, I will let you out soon, after my business here is done, that is. So do not fret, Olympians. Nothing bad will happen to you or this world while I am here. Order continued. Zeus at this point was fuming over with rage. Dark smoke and small bolts of lighting was literally coming off of his head. Everybody else had looks of worry on their faces. They all seemed to come to one conclusion. Whatever being had the power to trap all of the Olympians in one room was not something they could contend with. After a second of silence, everyone started yelling at the voice. Silence! The voice boomed and shook the throne room. At the same time, all the gods lost their voices. Their mouths moved, but no sound came out. Fear slowly plastered their faces as they stopped trying to talk. Though they had fearful faces, they showed anger as well. Nobody had ever treated them like this. It caused them to boil in rage. Thank you, almost lost my cool there. I am almost done here, so do no fret. Then you may proceed to chase me if you so wish. I suggest otherwise, but do what you wish. Trust me, though. You won't be able to find me, even if you send your best hunters after me. As they will all be useless efforts, my dear Olympians. Order finished his speech a few minutes later, and they could tell he left the area. The powers holding them in the room and their voices back slowly vanished as if they were never there to begin with. They all continued to stay silent until a sun god slowly spoke. "What the fuck just happened?" he whispered as the others quickly began to speak. "I will not risk my hunters to find such a being. If he has powers to hold us in place, then he is far too powerful. It would be a suicide mission," Artemis said with a somehow calm and collected tone, though it had a frostiness to it that seemed to be putting her foot down against any arguments against it. "I agree with little sis, I'm not risking it," Apollo said with worry. She just gave him a glance and nodded in approval. At the same time, several gods nodded, but Zeus shook his head. "Even if you cannot follow him or find traces of him, we need information. We must find out his motives. Why was he here? There are far too many questions right now that need to be answered. Your hunters will not be involved, it will only be us gods. Each of you will be given a section of America to search. If you feel that your life is at risk, retreat to Olympus and report to me. I will take the section around New York City. You all have 2 months, got that? Now go before I explode in anger," Zeus roared in anger as they all groaned in regret. It was a decent plan, but still did not want to follow it. With Zeus's temper on the rise, they quickly began to flash out of the throne room. Finally, only Zeus was left as he suddenly slammed his fist into the throne room door, blowing it open with a mighty boom. All the inhabitants of Olympus jumped in shock. "Bastard!" They all could hear the furious roar of Zeus that sent shivers down their spine. Back on Agalar 9 months later. Chaos POV, slightly sensitive content bellow. "Tartarus, damn it! Foe! C, ka. Get this baby out of me." After 9 long months of constant morning pains, constantly feeling sick, and being bloated, I was finally in the last leg of my pregnancy. I had to admit the worst of it had to be the cravings. What in chaos was I thinking back then? Pickles dipped in ice cream? It was so horrible. Yet it tasted so good at the time. I could only throw my head back in pain as a contraction hit me, my body overcome with pain as I let out a muffled groan as I held in my screams. Who knew giving birth would have such an effect on me? The pain was some of the worst I have ever felt. Even some massive wounds I experienced were far less painful than this. Over the course of my entire pregnancy, my powers had taken a sharp dive down. My very divinity fed everything it could into forming the precious spark of life inside of me. It left me as weak as a simple minor god, honestly. Heck, a weak minor god might be able to harm me if they put in some effort. Now, Chaos, please keep the cursing to a minimum. I'm sure your baby can hear you, Order said in a calm tone as he ran beside the patient bed. I was currently pushed to a labor unit in the most advanced hospital on this planet. You shut up. Help me somehow. If anything, let me squeeze your hand. It may help, okay? As I said this, I felt another pain-wrenching contraction hit me again. What was I thinking when I decided on this? Imagining the brilliant smile of my soon-to-be baby boy made me think that this was all worth it. As they got me to the labor ward, they told Order he had to stay behind and wait with all of the other fathers that were also expecting children today. As they got me to their station, they lifted me up on the bed. Then they started to hook me up with the machines to monitor my vitals as well. I laid there in pain, waiting for a second as soon as a doctor ran in and told me to push. Third-person POV. After 5 long hours, there was a cry, one of a new life taking its first breaths and seemingly angry after being brought out into the cold. The cry carried a power to it that made it heard throughout the universe. Some just played it off as simple nonsense or a stray sound. Some heard it and it made them remember the time their child was born. On Olympus, a particular moon goddess heard it as well. It brought her out of her thoughts as she quietly listened, seemingly enjoying the sound as it strongly reverberated with her domains. She was even able to instantly get a picture of the baby in her mind, its weight, gender, and health. To her, a picture of a healthy baby came to mind. Several other gods and goddesses related to childbirth also experienced the same thing. The happiest person in this universe at the time was Chaos herself. After agonizing hours of pushing, she was finally holding the fruit of her labors. Tears of joy filled her eyes as a storm of happy emotions filled her as a motherly smile graced her lips. In her tired arms was a now sleeping baby boy, though slightly potato-shaped at the moment he was adorable. A tuft of black hair claimed his head, adding to his adorable charm. He even appeared to be smiling as well. Order also heard the cry as a smile graced his lips. He had quickly got up from his throne, which he had been forced to go to by nervous doctors. He teleported outside Chaos's room and slowly entered the room as Chaos didn't even glance at him. Her attention solely focused on the baby in her arm. His eyes also were brought to the baby boy as he smiled even more than he already was. "Congratulations, sister. He is adorable. How are you feeling? You look more tired than I think I have ever seen." As he said this, she just nodded silently. "Thank you, Order. Also, I hate to admit it, but you are correct. I have never felt this weak before. It will take me a long time to recover. It is all worth it for this little guy," she said with a smile as she glanced at him, then quickly returned to look at the baby. "Sister, if I may, can I do something I've always wanted to do?" he said with a pleading look, Chaos looking up at him as her eyebrows raised up. Her motherly protective mode was already firing on all cylinders as she held her baby a little tighter. "What do you want to do?" she asked him as he shook his head, seeing her actions. "I promise it will do nothing to put him in any danger. I swear on your and my name. But I'm never going to have children, so I was wondering if I could adopt him. If it is all right with you, that is, since he is never going to see his birth father." He chose his words carefully as he said this and waited for her response. After a little while thinking it over, she finally answered, "I'm fine with it, as long as you help me take care of him," she said with a chuckle as he smiled so much he couldn't wipe it off his face, even if he tried. "Thank you, sis. Thank you." Then he got closer to the pair and prepared as he slowly rested his hand on the baby's head with the utmost care. "I order, Brother of Chaos, creator of energy and light, officially adopt Chaos's son, and in turn he will be able to use all of the power I possess." As he finished, a light covered the baby. It was a soft and warm white light, like a comfy blanket. It soon began to mix with a soft black light that appeared around him as well. Soon a sliver of sea green also joined as they began to mix with one another. As they did, they quickly dimmed down, leaving him as plain as any other child. With a smile from Chaos and Order, the baby stirred for a second, quickly retracting his hand from the baby Order, let out a sigh of relief. Soon the baby found a comfortable spot and began to rest peacefully. "So, have you decided on a name for him yet?" Order asked. Though he had helped suggest several dozen names, Chaos never once told him what she officially decided on. "Yeah, I have. I have decided on Perseus. Though a bit redundant, knowing our family tree, I think it is a beautiful name," she said. Order could only nod in agreement. "It's a beautiful name, Chaos. I believe with a name like that and a mother like you, he will grow into an amazing man someday. Also pray he didn't inherit your looks, or you will have women crawling all over him," he said with a chuckle as Chaos just gave him the stink eye. Suddenly a shudder ran through the room that caused the two beings to pale a little. Order could sense a massive explosion in the distance that made his face contort in anger. Then a terrifyingly familiar energy signature was felt by him as he gritted his teeth more than he already was. He couldn't believe that he missed such an important detail. He also couldn't believe that he let that awful being slip in right under his nose while Chaos was out of action. "We must leave now. It is not safe here for you right now." He felt you in your weakened state and decided to act. "We must move immediately, NYX. Come here." Order roared, causing Chaos's face to pale even further. Why did this have to happen? Why was fate so cruel? Out the window, you could see the physical destruction begin to spread as flashes of light covered the sky. A battle had already begun to confront the intruder and at least slow him down. The amount of damage he already caused was immense. Soon Nyx showed up, panic written all over her face. "Listen, you must take Chaos to her vacation planet. She is too weak to portal or even teleport on her own. Treat her with the utmost care. He shouldn't have any idea of where it is." "With haste, Nyx." Order quickly said as Nyx nodded. She then walked over to her mother as Chaos's face was filled with worry. What about Perseus? He won't survive such a long-distance portal or teleport. I won't risk it. Chaos cried and yelled at them, her arms wrapped around Perseus as tight as they could without hurting him. Nyx's face was filled with even more panic as the situation continued to worsen by the second. Order's face scrunched up in thought as brows furrowed. He then started to pace rapidly as millions of thoughts crossed his mind. Chaos remained silent as she watched him pace. She knew that there was only one option, one that she did not want to make. Chaos, Perseus must go to Earth. We will have Eros take him to Earth. He is best being besides us at hiding his energy signature on this planet right now. He will have to fly there to protect Perseus and to hide his energy signature as well. Earth is the second farthest habitable planet that is away from him. Fear filled Chaos's face as she tried to speak, but Order continued with a strained tone. It's the only way he won't find Perseus. He doesn't know of Earth either. I will remain behind as you and Nyx leave first. I will cover Eros' tracks as well and engage him in combat. It is only a matter of time before he finds you again, maybe a couple months or two before he tracks down your energy signature and continues his pursuit. Perseus will not be safe with us with that vile thing on our trail, and you know that. I will cast an anti-aging spell on Perseus as well, so that when he gets there, he will start to age. Please, Chaos, it's the only way, Order said as Chaos seemed to freeze as Eros flew in. Chaos knew this was the only way to protect her new son. Tears flooded her eyes as her body shook in sobs. Fate was one of the few things Chaos had no control over. It was fickle and unpredictable. She may be the creator, but even she could not escape from its hand. Slowly, Eros came in front of her and held out his hands as she gasped for a breath. After a second, she was finally able to get words to come out of her mouth. Okay, it must be done. Eros, be careful with him. I beg of you. If you so much as hurt a hair on him, I will know, and you will be lost to the empty void. Still be careful with yourself as well. It is a long flight. I don't want you to be harmed either. As Chaos had tears covering her face as she gave one last long look at her baby boy, as if burning his image in her mind. She then slowly gave the bundle in her arms to Eros as he gave her a firm nod. Knowing his importance in the plan, it had him nervous, but he knew he could do it successfully. All those years of hiding his energy to sneak peeks on ladies in baths came in handy after all. As Perseus remained quiet in his arms, Chaos could only stare at the two as Nyx waved her hand and teleported them away. This left only Order and Eros in the room as Order turned to him and waved his hand. A dim gray light spread over Perseus, effectively sealing his aging for the time being. With that, he gave Eros a nod, and then Eros quickly flew away, leaving Order alone. Order then slowly turned to the window facing the destructive cloud in the distance. With that, a deadly white glow covered him. Even his eyes turned completely white as sparks of lightning danced around him. His energy instantly destroyed the room around him, reducing everything to dust from its mere presence. With that, he shot forward with a yell, heading right for the deadly battle before him. A.N. Hello, everyone. Yes, I'm alive for those wondering. I just lived an infinitely busy life and had to take a break from writing for a long time. Thankfully, stuff is back on track, and it's going good for once. I don't know if I will work on the other stories for now, but I am hoping to complete a full rewrite of this story. If you have anything you might be interested in, just leave a comment on this note. E.N. Hello. I am new to the scene. This was edited after Nuts here came back to us, and I hope that with my help as an editor, we can make this story even better for all of you. I am a reader of his stuff, much like you all, so I feel this is a smart addition to the team. Dex signing off.